I'm Audra Drazga, the Vice President of the Energy Central Power Industry Network. Energy Central is a community platform with a goal to help professionals in the industry to share, learn, and connect in a collaborative environment. Our Power Talks are short 20 to 30 minute pre-recorded video or audio sessions bringing together industry experts to share their expertise around a topic that we feel is of interest to the industry and our community members. We invite Energy Central members to interact with the Power Talk discussion by using the comments section to ask questions, share your feedback, or add your own insights. If you have questions, the Energy Central Community Management Team will do our best to gain answers from the presenters and/or other community members. And now, I'm pleased to share with you today's Power Talk.
Welcome, everyone. My name is Bruce Buxton. I'm a business development manager for Locana. Kevin?
My name is Kevin Campbell. I'm the client development manager for Suburban Consulting Engineers.
Hi, and I'm Bruce Taylor. I'm the utility industry lead for Locana.
Okay, we're here today. We wanted to have a discussion between the three of us on what a comprehensive materials tracking and traceability program looks like and why it's important. We've been out there as a go-to-market team between Suburban Consulting Engineers and Locana talking about a solution that we've been deploying. And we've been talking to different utilities across the country, and we're seeing some really interesting patterns and behaviors with different companies around the nation. So we wanted to take a few minutes and describe to you what that comprehensive program might look like. We'll start, though, by telling you a little bit about what it is we're seeing in the industry as we present and as we talk to folks at conferences. We're seeing some patterns. So I'd like to just, Kevin, maybe you could start talking about the kinds of things. What are we seeing with companies out there that
well, it's a wide variety of different ways that gas companies are trying to tackle the material tracking and traceability requirements set forth by PHMSA. Anywhere from companies doing paper as-builting and manually entering that data into their GIS system or their asset management system, all the way up through kind of a program like ours with a comprehensive solution that provides significant automation, validation, and integration. So kind of everything in between as well. It's kind of interesting that different parts of the industry have kind of tried to track down their solution in different ways.
Are there efforts that go beyond paper as-builting that you're seeing? Are companies doing other things?
Yeah, so there's some companies within the industry that are starting to utilize GPS equipment for their data collection. There's some gas companies who have taken that even a little bit further, and they're providing barcode scanning of the materials being installed. But that's just kind of one part of a comprehensive solution. Taking that to the next step and actually using that data to support other initiatives to provide information in real time to the stakeholders throughout the gas company is a really big part of a full program as well.
Right. Yeah. So Bruce, would it be fair to say that there's a lot of companies that are doing data collection and calling it track and trace?
Yeah. And as Kevin was saying, there are a lot of different flavors. The thing that is oftentimes missing is the connection between what is collected. Even if you have GPS and barcode scanning, oftentimes that data will be pushed back to the GIS, or it may be pushed back to an asset management system. But oftentimes it's a kind of a discontinuous process, and it's not a full data stream that goes from your EAM to GIS to field and back. It's kind of piecemeal with data being siloed in one of those systems, and really doesn't do what a good track and trace program does, which is connect all of the data, connect all the systems so that you can, as the name says, track it and trace it all the way through from manufacturer to installation and ultimately the end of its life cycle.
Okay, that makes sense. So really in a large sense, one of the things that's missing is the connectivity, the data connectivity throughout the entire process.
Yep. Yeah,
Okay.
I agree.
Okay, good.
Ultimately, pretty much what we really focus on with our program is three different really important parts. You have automation, you have validation, and you have integration. So just capturing data in the field is really the first step towards meeting the PHMSA requirements, but how you use that data and how it integrates and to ensure that your data is accurately QA/QC'd, you're trying to make that data get as quality data as possible is an extremely important part of the whole process.
Okay, well, let's take a minute right now and let's just kind of describe for those who are watching what a comprehensive materials tracking and traceability program might look like. We'll talk about why all that's important a little bit later, but let's just talk about what it would look like from from the beginning of the process until the end of the process and what the in-between stops are. Bruce, maybe you could take a crack at that first.
Yeah, I like to think of it as the life cycle of the asset. So the asset is manufactured by a company, and then it gets purchased by a utility or a contractor, and then it goes and is installed, and it's put in the ground, and then it's maintained throughout its life cycle. So the comprehensive program tracks that asset through that whole process, from the procurement, from the engineering standards to make sure that it's an approved material that's going in the ground, through the construction process, and validation to make sure that it's installed properly, all the way through that maintenance life cycle and being able to track it in GIS and enterprise asset management system.
So Kevin, maybe you could talk about what data you collect and, best practices for collecting it and best practices once that data is collected. Then we can go from there. We can go back to Bruce and talk about connecting that data to the back office systems.
Yeah, so we've said the word automation a few times. Barcoding is the definition for a good foundation in automation. Just from scanning the material barcode, we're collecting up to 30 different attributes associated with that material as well. The model number, the manufacturer date, all the way through its shelf life, whether it's high density plastic, medium density plastic. And all of that data is really captured through the scan of one barcode. And what we've noticed is that this really eliminates the opportunity for human error, for fat fingering the wrong numbers in. You know that you're getting quality real-time data from a single barcode scan. And it makes it extremely efficient in the field for essentially anyone from the contractor or the gas company to be able to go out there and do the data collection and have a high level of confidence in the accuracy of the data.
That makes sense. So once you collect that data digitally, you have a store of data that's associated with a certain asset. What happens to that data at that point in a comprehensive program?
Yeah, so that data is taken, it's collected in the field using the GPS equipment. And as Bruce mentioned, it's validated in real time in the field. So once that barcode is scanned, we're validating that the material was actually on the engineering approved material list for the specific gas company. So now we're starting to talk about the validation part of it, right? It's understanding that the material is an approved material for that gas company and it's being installed in the right pressure system, et cetera. So you're starting to get asset accountability for what's being installed and whether it's approved to be installed on that specific project, which provides a lot of value. It's essentially giving you the first round of inspection while doing your track and trace program. Yeah,
that makes sense. So you've got validated data that's coming from your field data collection process or workflow that you're implementing in the field. Bruce, after that, you've got data going into the system and you're also querying data. Talk about that.
Sure. So the data is going essentially to two places. It's going to your GIS, which is an asset registry of sorts. It's also going to your enterprise asset management system. And oftentimes those people will link those two systems, but sometimes they won't. And that really is a mark of a good comprehensive program. The fact that those two are not just linked, but really synchronized with each other. So a asset that's in GIS is the same asset that's in your enterprise asset management system, because both of those systems are tracking that data through the life cycle of the asset. From a maintenance and inspection perspective, the enterprise asset management system has to know where those assets are, what they are, and how they're being, when they were last inspected. From a GIS perspective, you have to know, that system has to know where they are, when they were maintained, if they were replaced, or if a pipe is split. All of that information is tracked in the GIS. So the two systems are working in harmony with each other, and really the source, or what makes that system work is having the good data in the first place come into and then linked to those two systems.
Yeah, that makes sense as well. Kevin, a minute ago you mentioned that that accessing the approved materials list, it kind of provides you with that first level inspection or validation inspection that should happen in the field. What about the qualifications of those that are actually building the system, that are actually putting these assets in the ground?
Yeah, no, I'm glad we came back to that. Essentially, what I described before was the material barcode. It's kind of the first half of our automation and validation process. The second half is actually validating that the employee who completed the installation was operator qualified for the specific task that was required during the installation. So for example, a butt fusion or an electrofuse coupling needs to be electrofused to the gas main, all the way up through steel being welded and specific type of welds that are required for different connections. So there's the material barcode, which is scanned in the field and gives you all the asset data, followed by scanning the employee's ID badge, which gives you their name, their company, whether they were OQ'd for the task that they just completed, and if their OQ is up to date, because operator qualifications expire and need to be redone every so many years, depending on what gas company you work for. So you might need to go back for additional training every 3 years or 5 years or even 1 year for specific tasks to ensure that, so that the gas company can basically ensure that you are providing a quality installation. So that's the whole second part of the automation and validation, making sure that we're tracking who did the installation, not only that who did it, but also tracking whether they were actually operator qualified for the task that they just completed. So that's this whole second round of automation and validation, and kind of a second first crack at inspection as well, because you're making sure before the gas main goes in the ground that it's approved, and whoever did it was approved to do what they did, which is extremely important. I would say within the last 3 to 4 years, has really been the first opportunity to check all this information in real time. Whereas previously an as-built would have completed after the gas main was gassed in, and that would be QA QC'd by either ConOps or engineering. And that's where you would notice that a material was not approved or had expired, or whoever completed the installation wasn't OQ'd to do the installation. And then you'd have to go back out there and dig it back up, assuming that you knew where it was installed as well.
Right. So, now, Bruce, Kevin just mentioned the word, first time we've heard this in this discussion, the words real time. And it sounds like what you're describing, Kevin, is a real-time field workflow. How do we make that happen, Bruce? How do we enable that? With what technology do we have to use, and how do we enable that technology to get that real-time data flow going?
Yeah, we synchronize the data between the enterprise asset management system, the GIS, and the mobile application. So all of that information is connected virtually in real time. But when somebody is collecting the data, when they're out there scanning the barcode, and as that asset's going in the ground, that's when we connect back to those systems in the back office and determine whether that material is valid, whether that whether that installer is the right person, is qualified to do that installation. So that real-time validation is really powerful because you're not having to wait till after the fact to do that validation. So having the information available, staged in the back office so that it can be accessed immediately during that installation is the key to making sure that you're not having to dig up an asset later on because you're validating a couple of weeks later.
Yeah. So you just said a couple of weeks later, right? So it sounds to me like you guys are describing a workflow that begins in the trench, with the data collection. Well, actually would begin earlier than that in making sure your material list and your operator qualifications are up to date. However, the data collection begins in the trench, and then the data is collected. There's some push and pull of data during the day that enables the field crews to do their work. And at the end of the day, they have all the data they need to make good decisions about, whether that stays in the ground or not. Is that a fair way to look at it, Kevin?
Yeah. The other part that's really valuable from a real-time perspective is that different stakeholders throughout the company have access to that data immediately. So for example, someone in ConOps could track the amount of production done on a daily basis in real time, which is pretty unbelievable because that data is available. You can customize what data is available to who based on what they're concerned about. So you could do constructability. You could have engineering get a materials parts list in real time while it's being installed. It just provides transparency and data access to everyone throughout the gas company, and also customizes it based on what they're really interested in.
So this is a daily process, not necessarily a weekly or monthly process. This is happening in a construction day. All of this data is going back and forth, and people are making decisions.
Yeah,
Bruce,
it's hourly.
Hourly. Okay, that's a much better way to put it. Bruce, does it take proprietary equipment? Like as we've done this, does it take proprietary equipment to put this kind of comprehensive program in place? How do we go about doing that? How would we suggest it gets done?
Yeah, you don't need to have proprietary software or systems. All of this can be done through out-of-the-box software and systems that are the tricky bit, or the value add is the connection between those systems. So being able to configure the asset management system, to be able to talk to the GIS and be able to talk to the data collector. But yeah, that's what a lot of people don't understand is that they see, comprehensive comprehensive track and trace, and they shy away from that because that sounds like a lot, but it's really not, and it can be implemented in modules so that you can start to piece those pieces together and start to take advantage of those integrations and that real-time validation immediately.
It kind of sounds, when you say comprehensive track and trace, it kind of sounds like a black box, but really what you're talking about is making that data open and available on systems that these companies have already invested in and leveraging those systems. Am I hearing you right?
Absolutely.
Okay, cool. So let's just take a minute here at the end. Let's talk about, why people should care about having a comprehensive materials tracking and tracing program, right? So maybe Kevin, you take a stab at it first. Like, why would you go to the effort of making this happen?
Well, I mean, first of all, it's required. I brought up PHMSA earlier in the conversation. PHMSA 192 is known throughout the industry as the mega rule. And essentially it requires all gas companies to have asset accountability for all assets throughout their life cycle. So federal requirement is probably the best spot to start from a why would you need this perspective. I think that there's a lot of efficiencies to be gained in daily operations. There's a lot of accuracy in the quality of the data that would be captured. Ultimately, all of this kind of comes together for safety. The gas industry is very well known for having very strict safety requirements, and that transparency and that level of the level of assurance and the quality of the data is an extremely important thing for the gas industry. That on top of the fact that this is more efficient. This is a quicker way of getting information accurately available to different stakeholders. Project closeout is a really big conversation in the gas industry. Essentially, that's having all of the information you need for a project to have the checkbox that the project was done correctly from an auditing perspective. There's so much value in having a comprehensive program. Honestly, that's just scratching the surface of the advantages.
Yeah, and I think of some organizations that I've worked with who, not completely, but will have a data collection process, and then they'll take that information and they'll rekey it in their enterprise asset management system. There's a lot of duplication of effort out there, and having the data collected once with the GPS unit and have it distributed to multiple systems integrated, that's just a huge time saver, and it saves it really all levels of the process, from the field to the back office to people trying to access that information. It has multiple efficiencies built into it.
I'm glad you brought that up, Bruce, because there's a lot of different ideas in the industry on what best practices for asset management are. But I think one thing that's not disputable is that a program like this, that's comprehensive in nature, is foundational, really, for the best practices in asset management. And we know that that's something that the industry is striving for.
Absolutely. Well said.
Okay, good. Well, Bruce and Kevin, it's been a good conversation. I know that both of you stand ready to answer any questions that the listeners might have. You can easily find us on LinkedIn, or I think that that Energy Central will put our contact information together with this video blog here. And so we just want to thank you for listening today, and look forward to meeting all of you.
Yeah, this has been great.
Thanks.
Thanks a lot.
Thanks.